I'm showing you this cube in Illustrator so you understand what's going on. Notice how it's a 4 by 4 by 4, and it goes white, black, white, black. Well, I have the twin brother of this that's not really a twin because it goes black, white, black, white. Now, what's the big deal? One starts with white, one starts with black. Over here in Photoshop, the big deal is here's white, black, white, black. And if I turn that layer off, here's black, white, black, white. But these things aren't laid directly over one another. If you look, they're just registered. And that was my idea on how to play with this. Plus, like I told you before, see how these 3 cubes here don't go to the edge, but here they do. What I did, if I hold down Command, you can see I enlarged this layer. I grabbed a corner, held down Shift and Option in order to resize this right from the center. And then now I have these two on top of one another registered, but this one gets progressively bigger. So the difference between the edges gets progressively bigger. And you can see that by clicking on this uppermost layer, holding down Shift with the Move tool here, holding down Shift, and then tapping the plus sign while still holding down Shift, which runs you through the blend modes, which gives you the different ways these 2 layers interact with one another, and they make potentially really cool new isometric art. Now let's say you want to preserve this one. So what I would do is I would come here, Shift, Option, Command N to make a new layer, Shift, Option, Command E to merge visible on that new layer. And then you can turn this off. Come back down here and again, Shift, plus, and figure out what do you like. That was actually kind of cool. But I'll just keep going and say, how about that one? Okay, that's different. So Shift, Option, Command N, then tap E, and we've got that too. So now we have 1, 2, and you might say, oh, that's the same. Well, this one, and we still haven't gone through all the blend modes, and I should just take you here because holy moly, some weird stuff really happens when you get to difference, divide, exclusion, and all that. And then you get a little difference here. So let's cut back to normal. So now, what happens when you click on this layer with just the regular version of that and start going through the blend modes? What else happens? Why isn't that? Oh, I'm on the wrong layer. It helps if you're actually on the correct layer and start tapping through these things, and you notice you're getting brand new variations on a theme. Well, really quickly, the geometric possibilities of combination start to go through the roof. We're probably already, with just these layers and all the different blend modes, at dozens of fairly interesting geometry that we can then begin to work with. And let's just say for kicks that I didn't stop here for any reason. Let's say I want to preserve that. And then I want to see what that looks like with a blur on it. So I'm going to right-click on this, convert it to a smart object. I have a shortcut for that. And then go to Camera Raw. Or not Camera Raw, I'm going to go to a blur. So Filter, Blur, and then a Motion Blur. And I only use these in 2 directions with these, 90 degrees and 30 degrees, because that's the way the geometry goes. And yeah, I could go in the other direction with the 30, but I find, keeping it simple on these 2 layers is the best way to work. And then, guess what? Blend modes. And you look for something, wow, that's pretty different. You look for things that begin to shout out to you. Now, this is kind of drab. What happens if this goes through Camera Raw? So if I wanted to do that, I'd pull on another layer, turn that into a smart object. I used a shortcut that time, and then take it through Camera Raw. And then here, click Auto just to see what happens. And, kind of okay. Probably go back to default and say, what happens if I just adjust this? And what happens if I pump the blacks up? And start playing with these these sliders and then hit the letter P to see before and after. And you can see we can start pumping up which way does the contrast go, which way helps it become more interesting. What happens if you add a little clarity? And sometimes that's great, sometimes it's not. Let's just say we like that. Say okay. Now, turn off the layer below it. Turn off the layer below that. What happens if you begin to go through those blend modes? Does anything cool happen? That's different. Okay? This is a playground for artists. The trick is, how do you reproduce what you make if you really, really like it? Because this starter file is 2500 by 2500 and we need to work at 5000 by 5000. Now, why didn't I give you that file? Because right now I'm already up to 175 megabytes with these layers right here. And if this were 5000, that's 4 times as big. So, we're up in the 700 megabyte range already and we just got started. So that's why I'm having you work small, but experiment with this. Have fun. I mean, have a blast, because there are some amazing things that happen. And all we did is start with this silly little thing here, which is a nice geometric or isometric pattern. But oh my goodness, doesn't it become far more interesting? And I don't mean that particular blend mode. If we keep working, maybe we find something even better. Have fun with this. Experiment. Don't be satisfied until you discover something you can't believe. Okay? Whoa. Play around. Find something new and amaze me.